Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Screen Junkies Universe. I'm Dan Merle. Roth Cornett is on vacation. Billy Business is on vacation. Emma Fife had to reschedule, so you're stuck with the three of us.
Hi.
Alongside me, Spencer J. Gilbert.
Hey, happy to be eating this sandwich. This
Joe
white bread
Star.
sandwich.
I'm bread, but I'm like the butt bread.
Some people like the butt bread.
Some people do.
Yeah.
And that's Joe Star.
There you go. Joe Star, the butt bread of Screen Junkies. Guys, we're starting this week a lot like how we ended last week. We're talking about a surprise Marvel Netflix cancellation over the weekend, fresh on the heels of Iron Fist being canceled, which caught a lot of people off guard. Netflix and Marvel shocked fans even more by announcing the cancellation of Luke Cage. This was their official joint statement from both companies. Unfortunately, Marvel's Luke Cage will not return for a third season. Everyone at Marvel Television and Netflix is grateful to the dedicated showrunner, writers, cast, and crew who brought Harlem's hero to life for the past 2 seasons, and to all the fans who have supported the series. Now, both Iron Fist and Luke Cage were canceled, but both in completely different stages of development. Iron Fist Season 2 aired fairly recently. They had not yet begun work on Season 3. Luke Cage was deep into development for a third season. It had not been given an official pickup, but there had been a writer's room going for several months. According to a Deadline report, they said, quote, detailed drafts for the first half of the 10 episodes projected third season were delivered to Marvel and Netflix last week. Deadline reports that they heard that some execs had issues with some of the scripts that were more developed. That devolved into apparently a lot of disagreement and ultimately ended in the show being canceled due to the classic creative differences. Luke Cage star Mike Colter tweeted, I'm forever grateful to Marvel and Netflix for letting me portray such a prolific character, and I thank you, amazing fans. A lot of great memories. Time to make more. Always forward. Forward always. This is a big surprise. I think that a lot of people, because Iron Fist, according to a lot of fans, had a bit of an uptick in Season 2. That show's cancellation was surprising. But this one, I would say, is a shocker. Most people had just taken it for granted that Luke Cage would be picked up for a third season. Daredevil Season 3 premiered just this past weekend. Jessica Jones Season 3 and Punisher Season 2 have been officially picked up by Netflix, but what do you guys think? Is this the beginning of the end? Is this a culling? What's going on here?
What's happening, Dan? What's going on? They keep canceling these shows. This sucks if this is the real reason that they're giving for why it's canceled. Like, really, creative differences are going to derail like a critically beloved show? Like, what you love about these Netflix shows is that they seem to have independence to kind of tell their own stories, and Netflix seems to just be like, hi, we're Netflix, here's a check, deliver your show when you're ready.
Well, Marvel's also in the mix too, and apparently there's always notes back and forth. Again, according to these Deadline reports, the scripts that were turned in were already containing notes that had been handed down from Marvel and Netflix. And these reports, obviously, they can be one-sided, they can be skewed toward one party or the other. These are just the initial behind-the-scenes reports that are being given in.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it was 100% an issue where the network didn't have confidence in the show. It just seemed like there may have been.
But is Marvel trying to sabotage these Netflix shows? Are they trying to pick them off one by one so that they control, the distribution?
That's possible. Disney, I believe it's called Disney Play, will be debuting in the near future. Joe, what do you think? Are they kind of trying to pull a fast one here?
I mean, Netflix has already said that I believe that the Defenders franchise is going to stay where it is.
They said the shows were theirs to cancel last week. And they talked about Iron Fist. They said these are our shows to cancel.
That's very true.
And they wanted to prove that.
The reports on the writers being unhappy or creative differences with the writers' room are so strange to me, because you just replace them, right? Like, if you're gonna move forward with your show,
if you want the show, you'd change the showrunner or something like
that. In the next 2 or 3 weeks, we would be like, God, they changed the showrunner, Luke Cage. Can you believe it? And then we would still watch the show when it came out. Like, this seems like pretty drastic, unless they were already like, you know what, it's not performing quite the way it needed to, or whatever, and it needs to go.
Now, the fan speculation this weekend was that Marvel was going to scoop up Iron Fist and Luke Cage and make a Heroes for Hire show.
Well, they are truly heroes for hire now.
They are literally heroes for hire.
freelance.
Do you think we're going to see these characters on the Disney service, on another Netflix series? It seems weird because they weren't canceled at the same time. which I think kind of speaks to the fact that there's a little more behind the scenes with Luke Cage. Because if they were going to cancel both shows, you would think they would have said, we are canceling Iron Fist and Luke Cage in one go instead of doing this process twice, going through the whole thing with Iron Fist and then 2 days later going through it all over again with Luke Cage, which to my eyes, that sort of backs up the fact that this was more of a behind the scenes issue with they just perhaps could not get eye to eye on what the future of the show was.
It's just such a mystery box without seeing these deals and who owns the rights, and if they cancel it on Netflix, do the rights then revert to Disney to make their own show called Heroes for Hire on Disney Play and stuff like that? Like, we need a deep throat inside Disney, inside Netflix, inside all these places, because we're just a couple of nerds just talking out of our asses.
Well, that is 100% true.
But that's the show. It's part of the opening theme song.
Exactly. That's our slogan.
I can't see, just with, the same as X-Men folding into the MCU, I think if Disney was going to do their own shiny new Heroes for Hire show, it definitely wouldn't have anything to do with this talent. I don't know. It seems like a weird move with them so connected to the Netflix universe for them to be like, we're separating out Luke Cage and Iron Fist for their own deal. I don't know. It's weird.
So like I said, we have Daredevil season 3. It just wrapped up.
It's not bad so far.
I have not caught up, so I don't know how it ends. I don't know where it leaves the character of Daredevil. As I mentioned, Jessica Jones season 3 and Punisher season 2 have been given Netflix pickups, but they're not currently in heavy production. Punisher is expected to debut next year at some point. Jessica Jones is, I'm sure, at some point in the structuring of the next season. Do you think these shows will just continue on? Are they going to pretend like these characters didn't exist?
Yeah, you could turn Iron Fist and Luke Cage into Hawkeye and Hulk respectively, of like they can still pop up in these other shows. They could still do a Defenders season 3 or season 2. But it sounds like Mike Coulter's saying like goodbye forever.
It seems a bit of a, forever great. I mean, it's a Henry Cavill situation of like, what's really going on there? What do they say? What does that mean? But it does seem a bit,
He's a classy dude. That's a classy statement.
It is a class. And
congratulations on your baby girl.
The showrunner of the series tweeted out very similar statements. So so far it's not been openly acidic. It seems like, although you never know, the true stories for these come out as the days and weeks go on. But
sure, I think there's definitely a lot of scrap metal in those shows left over that could benefit the other shows by picking up. Misty Knight, the Daughters of the Dragon are really cool characters. They can end up in Jessica Jones or Daredevil. There's some cool like supporting characters and concepts from those shows that they can at least move over. I'm hoping that we haven't seen the last of some of those characters. That would be a shame. Finn Jones as Iron Fist, I'm fine with
I would
leaving,
find it
but
a little more manageable and maybe even interesting if you took all the street level Marvel Netflix heroes and they were all just under one series banner, and you had like 35, 40 episode seasons, but they could mix in and out. There's the Daredevil arc and the Luke Cage arc and stuff like that. That might be a little more digestible for me than these 10 episode chunks of all these different ones.
So if you're Spencer Netflix,
you're
moving forward with
Spencer Netflix, yes.
You're desegmenting a little bit and we just kind of let it be more of an open world.
Yeah, like because not that I want to turn into a CW show, but they have long seasons and they have time to follow lots of different characters around. And enough episodes to give all of them their moment and their arcs, but then you can have bottle episodes where it's just Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, or just a Daredevil episode, or this one's off with the Punisher.
So you want to Game of Thrones up their street level heroes a little bit.
Exactly.
I like that.
That's my pitch. Spencer Netflix has spoken.
That's it. Spencer Netflix has made his ruling. You're gonna have to live with it. You didn't know he was running this the entire time, did you?
Yes. Hit the fire everyone button.
Fire everyone. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's definitely a big surprise, and with all the stuff with the streaming services, the streaming wars, now they're going to be competing with each other, Marvel and Disney and Netflix and Warner. I don't know what's going to happen.
Don't cross
anymore.
the streams.
Don't cross the streams. Speaking of crossing streams, Netflix is crossing its streams with Guillermo del Toro.
Phrasing.
I'm no Roth. One door closes, a window opens. Guillermo del Toro as has been announced, has finalized a deal to write, produce, and direct a stop-motion musical version of Pinocchio for Netflix, which will reportedly be set in Italy during the rise of fascism in the 1930s. And if this sounds familiar, it's because Guillermo del Toro is very excited about this movie. This is a passion project for him. In a statement, he said, quote, "No art form has influenced my life and my work more than animation, and no single character in history has had as deep of a personal connection to me as Pinocchio. I've wanted to make this movie for as long as I can remember." Late last year, Del Toro said in an interview with IGN that this project was dead. He said that it was not happening. He'd reportedly been working on a deal with Amazon that had fallen through. So this is a project that had been sort of left for dead. It seems like not by Del Toro, but by a lot of people saying it doesn't look like this is going to happen. It is now happening at Netflix. First off, what do you guys think? Animated Pinocchio set in the 30s, Guillermo del Toro on board.
I mean, it's stop motion, which is... I'm down with just combining all of the creepy things together under a Del Toro banner. Stop motion, a talking puppet.
Singing.
Yeah, creepy singing, probably, yeah.
Fascism.
Yeah, fascism, yeah. Give me all those things in one movie. I'm super into this. It sort of solidifies Netflix again as we're a home for creators who just want to create. Toro, come make your Pinocchio thing you've been trying to make for decades.
Yeah, he's got a relationship with them already with, is it Troll Hunters? Troll Hunter?
He worked with he produced that show that was on Netflix.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is not going to be a low budget project, as stop motion never is.
And it also sounds like it's not particularly aimed at children, even though be a classic like Pan's Labyrinth kind of twisted fairy tale, which I mean, in his hands, hell yeah. I'm curious to see what he does musically.
I want the blue fairy to just be Pan from Pan's Labyrinth, and it's fine.
I'm the blue fairy. Anything that owns more work, I'm in favor.
Yeah,
One of the nicest guys in Hollywood.
So yeah, when some creepy puppets screaming about or singing like Mussolini, you're a meanie, I'll be like, money well spent. Money well spent.
Spencer, please tell me you're going to use your Netflix to have that be one of the musical numbers in Pinocchio.
Done.
Mussolini, you're a meanie. The button's
Was
been
that
pushed.
the Mussolini, you're a meanie button that's right next to the you're fired button?
It's tough.
You should see this desk. It's
So
lined
many buttons.
with buttons.
Release the dogs. Mussolini. Yeah, it's a lot.
This is what happened. There's a cancel Luke Cage button. The studio is being cleaned over the weekend.
Yeah. Well, they meant to hit the release the bees and accidentally canceled Luke Cage, which was, you got buttons, dude.
And you got to just roll with it at that
It's not how you
point.
become president of Netflix.
So we've got TORO making a film at Netflix. Obviously, Shape of Water, Best Director winner, Best winner. Martin Scorsese doing a film with Netflix with the. That's going to have a huge budget. Michael Bay is doing films at Netflix now. Paul Greengrass, who's an Oscar-nominated director, just did a movie with Netflix. This to be the place now. It's not just niche filmmakers, and it's not just niche films. Netflix seems to be establishing its place not only as a streaming giant, but as a movie distribution giant. Do you think that this is how they're going to be the edge? Is they're going to be the place where filmmakers go to make their passion projects?
I mean, it's if you compare the Netflix like movie landscape now to say last year and the year before, I mean, they've really turned it around because I feel like at this table a year or two ago, how long have we been doing this show? 17 years?
17 years.
Yeah, 17 as of yesterday.
It was Bright, and it was a Christmas Prince, and
Mute.
and we were joking that Netflix was the place where your movie went if Blockbuster didn't buy it.
Yeah.
And that list really kind of turns it around.
Yeah, I mean, the Cloverfield paradox seems to have been perhaps a bit of a turning point for them as far as buying first-run distribution. I think if the film had turned out maybe a little better, it may have been even a bigger deal. But back in January, I'm pretty sure we were here in January. And we were talking about how is this a turning point, and it seems like they're continuing to invest in big-budget mainstream projects.
Yeah, and I still don't understand. A lot of it's licensed, right? Like these are films that exist in other countries or were released there, and they've just, handed over a check to be able to put it on Netflix.
Yeah.
But hell yeah, this is what an amazing lineup. Like these are all really exciting filmmakers. I'm curious to see what Michael Bay will do. I imagine it's like that burning Yule log for Christmas, but it's just an explosion. You can just leave it on for background.
Just a continuous expanding
Yeah,
explosion.
you can leave it on for 2 hours in the background over Christmas. But yeah, I mean, look,
would
it's
watch
exciting. I don't think that, like, save for Mudbound, which also, and the African Warlord one.
Beasts.
Beast of No Nation. 13th got some awards recognition.
Yeah, but I feel like all of those also were in theaters, if I recall
They were,
correctly.
yeah, I
When
mean-
they were given runs so they could get
Yeah.
Academy recognition, yeah.
I still haven't seen, like, the first great Netflix-only original movie. Discounting those because they were released elsewhere, too. So we'll see. But these are exciting.
Well, then you, sir, have not seen a little thing that I like to call Sierra Burgess is a Loser. I haven't seen it. Okay. That was the funniest name I could think of off the top of my head.
it's all good.
That does sound like a Netflix rom-com. Or
It is a Netflix
Oh, okay.
starring Barb. Starring Barb.
Shannon
All right.
Purser.
Cool. No, I mean this list just continues to bury us in Netflix stuff that we'll never ever catch up with.
Yeah, they're going
And
quantity and quality.
They really, which is a nice, refreshing strategy.
All right, hot take time. I'll put you guys on the spot.
Okay.
Within the next 5 years, does a Netflix-backed film win Best Picture?
Ooh, Best Picture. No.
No?
10 years, yes. I'll take the
Take the
over,
over?
for 5, yeah.
All right.
But close.
Joe, what do you think? Next 5 years?
Yeah.
Joe says yes.
Yeah.
And 5 years from today, we'll meet right back here
We'll meet right back here
and
yeah.
settle this bet.
Yeah, it'll be
Done.
great. It'll be the lobby of like a I don't know, a large McDonald's or something at that point.
Yeah. Probably.
We'll be right back here. We'll get some McGriddles.
Get some McGriddles and talk about Netflix.
like the old days.
Speaking of the old days, Joe, a movie that harkened back to those old days, Halloween, as expected, had a massive opening weekend. Blumhouse's quasi-reboot of Halloween debuted at number 1 this weekend, as expected, with an estimated $77 million plus. Those numbers will be finalized when final numbers come out later today. We'll cover the big picture on charting later today, but I want to talk a little bit about it. This was a huge thing over the weekend. This marks the second highest grossing debut for a horror film, the highest debut for a slasher film, franchise best opening weekend, a Blumhouse best opening weekend, and it also comes in right behind Venom as the second highest opening in October history. Star Jamie Lee Curtis tweeted out a lot of these stats along with a picture of her and her co-stars Judy Greer and Andy Matichak with the hashtag Women Get Things Done. We knew going into the weekend that this was going to be a big success. It has proven to be a big success. The budget was not close to what they made. This is going to be a massive hit. Guys, Hollywood loves a bandwagon. What bandwagon are they going to jump on with the success of Halloween? Is it going to be the Resurgence bandwagon? Is it going to be the slasher bandwagon? What do you think?
How about the slasher resurgence bandwagon? I was reading on my way in that LeBron James is going to produce a Friday the 13th remake.
Yeah.
Yep.
like
I
all
broke
of those
down.
words
Is he going to play Jason?
That would be kind of scary, actually.
He's got the physique
He's got
for
the
it.
athleticism
Yeah.
and the vertical that
Yeah.
Jason never had.
Definitely one you can't escape.
I don't think Hollywood's that creative. That they'll say slasher resurgence worked. Let's make more of those.
Joe, what are the wrong lessons that Hollywood is going to take from this movie's success?
Oh, you are definitely going to see, a new Friday the 13th. You're going to see a new Nightmare on Elm Street. All of them will just be direct sequels to their,
The first ones.
the first ones.
I just watched New Nightmare last night, and I was thinking about how much better that movie might have done if it were released
now.
today instead of
a little ahead of its
10
time.
years after the movie came out.
Also, I mean, the trope I wouldn't mind is pulling some past Scream Queens and action ladies like Jamie Lee Curtis out, and
Yeah. Well, we've got
putting them
Linda
back at the
Hamilton
forefront.
coming
Yeah.
back to the Terminator franchise and that next film.
They're very cool
Do
ladies.
you think is Sigourney Weaver's phone going to be ringing in the next couple months? With that was Neil Blomkamp famously was going to make a continuity discarding Alien franchise sequel with Sigourney Weaver.
That would have been fun.
Do you think maybe that script gets pulled out of development?
Only if it's a direct sequel to Only Alien Resurrection,
No.
and it's her and Winona Ryder.
No.
Come on, man, go with me on this. Bees.
Don't press that button, Spencer. I know it's down
Hovering
there.
under the bees.
Yep.
Holding. No.
But
made a ton of money.
do you think that there are going to be franchises now that producers are going to say like, well, let's see if we can blow the dust off of it, and maybe we've got a messy continuity, but what's Pinhead doing?
Yeah, I don't think it's too big of a leap
How's
because
the Jeepers Creepers thing holding up?
Yeah.
horror for a long time now, it feels like a decade, has been like one of the relatively safe feature film investments. They don't cost a lot, and there's there's kind of a built-in audience for them.
Yeah.
So if you can then get buy-in on the people who own these different franchises that have kind of been beaten to death throughout the 80s and 90s, and then be like, forget it, we're starting again, sort of, but with the things you like, it's easy money.
Yeah.
Easy money.
This has been leading up to it. A lot of the narrative around it was that this was Laurie Strode's story. This is about 3 generations of her family, her daughter, her granddaughter. I think if you look at this film, if you look at a recent another Blumhouse film like Happy Death Day, which featured the
Already
trope
announced
of the
Happy Death Day 2.
Happy Death Day 2U is coming out. The trope of the final girl's been around in horror movies forever. But it seems like we're seeing more where the female lead is not just running from the killer, but is also very much in charge and is, the real impetus and the push behind the movie. Do you think we're going to see more of that where, it's always been females have been in the lead, Nightmare on Elm Street, a lot of horror films, but it seems like there's been a bigger push toward really letting those characters drive the franchise. Do you think we'll see more of that?
Yeah, because I think it's just kind of a satisfying thing to watch, is like seeing the tables get turned on the monster. That's usually the most fun part of the horror movie. So I don't see why not, as long as they're still interested. And I don't see. I mean, Sigourney Weaver she's willing to sit in a dragon cave on Netflix or whatever. So I don't
Dragon Bones.
Yeah, I don't see why she wouldn't want to do like a good kind of continuity reboot to Aliens or similar with Linda Hamilton. They're already on board.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's the arc that you want from something like this, from a protagonist like this. They were scared, they were on the run, they survived. It strengthened them, it got them ready for their next encounter. That's why that first scene in Terminator 2, when Linda Hamilton's just doing like chin-ups in the psych ward and stabbing her doctor in the knee with a pen, like that's why it's so effective, because that's instantly you're like, okay, that is not the Sarah Connor that was like running through that nightclub.
Yeah.
Running away through that nightclub. This is a whole new lady who's been through some hell.
Yeah.
And same with Laurie Strode in the new Halloween. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what other arc you do.
Yeah.
Right. Still a virgin.
We'll find out. We're gonna find out when they ultimately, I'm sure, make the worst possible version of what we just got, which was I think crafted with a lot of care toward fans and a lot of it, and was a big hit with audiences. I mean, people really liked this movie. We'll see how it does next weekend as far as the drop and everything goes, but. Yeah, I think it's gonna be very interesting to see. As always, anytime there's a big boom, what does Hollywood get right? What are the right lessons they take, and what are the wrong lessons they take? So I think there's going to be a lot taken away from this movie. Finally, guys, I thought this was a really interesting story. Jet Li did an interview with Abacus, and he talked about turning down a role in the Matrix sequels. He was offered the role of Seraph, which ultimately went to a martial artist named Colin Chu. But he opened up about why he turned that role down, and he said, quote, "I realized the Americans wanted me to film for 3 months, but be with the crew for 9, and for 6 months they wanted to record and copy all my moves into a digital library. By the end of the recording, the right to these moves would go to them. I was thinking, I've been training my entire life, and we martial artists could only grow older, yet they would own my moves as an intellectual property forever, so I said I couldn't do that." He turned down the role. I think this is a really interesting question as far as we've seen with Rogue One, of course, with the permission of the estate, but the resurrection of Peter Cushing to play Grand Moff Tarkin again. Jet Li here apparently 15 years ago was saying, I don't necessarily want to sign over what I consider to be my trademark to a studio to be their intellectual property forever.
Sure.
Do you think this is a conversation that more actors should be having? Do you think Jet Li was just being overly cautious here?
Well, I think with Lee for this one, because Colin Chow was also the lead in that video game tie-in, right? He was like one of the main characters in it.
I believe Seraph was a big part of
playing
Enter the Matrix.
Enter the Matrix is what it was called.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if part of what he's talking about for this 6 months was then going to be mocap
for the game. Yeah.
And I get that when, especially for, a martial arts performer on camera, I'm trying to think of additional like equivalents, but I can only think of like horse specialist or
But
something.
no,
weird.
let's
I don't know, but
a
you know what I'm
horse
saying?
specialist.
Like,
No, go on, Joe.
dancer,
Yes.
Tell us more about the horse specialist.
the thing about being a horse specialist
Yeah.
this day and age in Hollywood,
Your moves
is,
are your moves.
It's hard to trust the horse you're working with these
Yeah,
days because
definitely.
nefarious union busters.
But let's say Gollum. I mean, somewhere on some server in the New Line or whoever owns that MGM Warner
Andy
Brothers, I
Serkis's
don't even know.
performance is
Andy
Gollum.
Serkis's performance is sitting on a drive somewhere. That's obviously his performance. He did that performance. However, it is now the property of a studio who, depending on what kind of contract was signed, can now use that data for whatever purposes they want to, really.
Let me backtrack on the horses because I figured out my examples.
Okay.
Not as prevalent as, say, a martial artist, but like a dancer.
Yes.
Who you don't necessarily have big dance stars anymore. But if that's what you do, if that's what you're known for, and a studio wants to be able to mocap that kind of thing, and then they're going to own the footage they create, that's taking your tools like directly out of your toolkit and just claiming them for yourself.
Well, because there was this debate has been going on since the advent of CG. Because there was when Fred Astaire dancing with the vacuum cleaner, but that's taking existing footage. I think this is the new thing that we're talking about, where it's not just footage; it's data that can be manipulated, data that can be reused, recycled, recut. Spencer, what do you think?
God, it's such a complicated area because, like, I think it's cool if there's consent on both sides. If he's like, yeah, I am getting older. I want to preserve all my moves for posterity. And wouldn't that be cool if, like, you could always kind of recreate Jet Li's fighting style? But if they weren't
Especially if he's paid for it.
Yeah, if he's paid for it and they understand what they're actually selling or giving up, then, like, yeah, but it seems like this was kind of them trying to dupe him into that. I just love that, like, martial artists are like, will not reveal their secret techniques in reality. That's awesome to me. It's like, no, I will not show you the 5-finger death punch or whatever.
At some point, we're going to do this video about crazy martial artists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because eventually you do go insane as an adult martial arts star. Tony Jaa, Steven Seagal.
It's a tough life.
Professional
martial artist and professional horse specialist in Hollywood. Tough lives. That isolation from humanity because you're just hanging out with those horses.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think that this was all an attempt from Warner Brothers to create an army of killer android Jet Lis?
Well, they did
That
in that
failed
movie
spectacularly.
in The One, where Jet Li fought an army, a planet full of Jet Lis at the end.
Right. Was Warner Brothers trying to do this in real life? Is this why the Matrix sequels existed, is what I'm saying? Were they all a cover to create an evil version of programmable Jet Li's based off of his movements? And then he said no, and they're like, well, we have to make these
Yeah, the
movies
signs were
anyway.
there, with that, when Mr. Smith kept duplicating himself.
Yes.
Like, he could have been using Jet Li's moveset, and that would have been...
The real life
Neo wouldn't have
technology,
had a chance.
however, went really poorly, and they created Tommy Wiseau. That's we're like, oh, what have we done?
Oh, what a science done.
What a
The
science.
Room did come out around 2003, and nobody knows where he was before then.
Yep. Nope.
So you're saying
he was in a lab under the water tower.
Yep.
under the water tower,
In the water tower.
in the water
That's
tower
where the
with the
secret
Animaniacs.
Yep.
They were trying to program him with Jet Li's moves, and it all went wrong.
Yeah.
Guys, we've solved so many mysteries here today.
Thank God.
That's the SJU promise.
That's the SJU problems. We're like the mystery. We're just going to get back in the mystery machine and go find Old Man Carruthers in the amusement park. Until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us. We were a little shorthanded today, but I had a good time. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. So much to watch on Screen Junkies News. We'll be doing charting later today. There's a Halloween spoiler review that Roth and I did over the weekend. And then, guys, tomorrow, Honest Trailers and Honest Trailer commentaries right here on Screen Junkies News. And we also have a review of Bohemian Rhapsody coming out tomorrow morning.
Ooh.
So excited to bring that to you.
It's going to be good.
Spencer Gilbert, Joe Starr, any final thoughts?
I'm sorry that my brain farted out that horse thing.
That's all right.
No, that's the best.
Horse specialist. See you guys later. Spencer's hitting the end show.